Hey, what's going on, guys? You got TLR here, and this is going to be our team builder for week 10 of the PDL, which stands for the Puckle Draft League, the draft league I have been participating in for the past couple of months. And this week we will be playing Hydra. Hydra and the. I'm sorry, I always forget my opponent's names. Norwalk Nosepass. Okay. We're playing Hydra and the Norwalk Nosepass. You can see his team, his drafted Pokemon on the right side of this screen. A lot of offensive Pokemon, and because of that, we're going to be playing. Well, the team I built basically functions the way it does because he has so many offensive Pokemon. He doesn't have a lot of bulky defensive pivots, and therefore we have a lot of breakers that can hopefully just, as soon as they get in a good position, can pick up a knockout. So, yeah, our six Pokemon we're going to be bringing this week are Zapdos, Tangela, Bronzong, Emboar, Nidoking, and Gyarados. And let's just get right into it. Zapdos is going to be our first Pokemon. This is going to be our physically defensive pivot. Leftovers, pressure, same thing that we've been running for a while with Defog, Roost, Heat Wave, and Volt Switch. I'm going to be running Volt Switch this time because he does have a good amount of things that can switch into Zapdos and not really be worried about taking too much damage, stuff like Snorlax and Muck. So if we can Volt Switch on those switch-ins, we basically get momentum, especially like if he switches into Snorlax to eat up a hit from Zapdos, because Snorlax obviously has a good amount of special defense. We Volt Switch out, go into Emboar, and we've got Fighting Stab that threatens just about all of his team. So, yeah, Volt Switch can really help us get momentum. Heat Wave is there is because it hits Glalie really hard, and it also hits Serperior, which could be a little bit problematic for Zapdos if it's a subset. And we this basically prevents Serperior from being able to get up a free sub. Uh, Defog is there to clear hazards. He has option for spikes on Mega Glalie. He has toxic spikes on Cofagrigus. He has multiple stealth rockers, but having Defog on the team means that we don't have to worry about getting worn down by hazards as long as we can keep them clear. And then, of course, Roost for reliable recovery. Just the standard physically defensive set, max HP, max defense. This is because this is going to be our primary switch into Infernape. And since it doesn't resist fire type moves, I don't want to be taking as much from Flare Blitz, so just having max defense gives us a nice patch for that. It also does a good job at checking stuff like Serperior, Dugtrio. If it's not Belly Drum Snorlax, we can switch into that even, although we can't really threaten much damage in return. But yeah, it's just a nice bulky Pokemon on the physical side, and it can even check some special attackers too, thanks to its typing. Next up is going to be our primary specially defensive pivot, which is going to be Tangela, rocking the Eviolite and Regenerator, just like always. Going to be running Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Knockoff, and Leech Seed this week. Giga Drain is its stab move, gives him a little bit of recovery, hits stuff like Blastoise, it does a decent chunk to Mega Glalie, stuff like that. Sludge Bomb is there pretty much solely for the Serperior, again, to prevent it from setting up a substitute, because if that thing gets up a substitute, then that could be a problem. So it hits Serperior pretty decently and prevents the sub from going up. Knockoff is there because we can knock off Serperior's item, we can knock off Raiko's item, we can even knock off Snorlax's item if it's like a 50% berry. We can knock it off and then it can't heal anymore. And then Leech Seed is there if I predict my opponent to switch, like let's say they have their Blastoise in, and Blastoise doesn't really threaten a lot of damage to Tangela. So it's probably going to want to switch, right? If I predict the switch into Muck, I can Leech Seed that and prevent, well, and get some residual and heal myself up at the same time. So again, super standard set, max HP, max FIDF. This helps me take hits from stuff like Infernape, although Tangela is not going to be switching into Infernape. If it comes down to a situation where Tangela needs to live a hit from Infernape, this allows it to eat up an overheat if it's running that. Flare Blitz won't knock out either. It allows me to take hits from Serperior. It allows me to take hits from Blastoise and Cofagrigus. Pretty much everything special, and even physical attackers that don't have a way to hit it super effectively aren't going to be threatening Tangela with too much damage. So nice special defensive pivot right there. Regenerator really helps its longevity. Next up is going to be Bronzong coming back after sitting on the bench for last week. running the old Aguav Recycle set, the set that I have grown to love. Levitate this week because he does have the Dig Trio. He can also have Earthquake on his Glalie, so I value being immune to ground type moves more this week than having the damage from fire type moves. Gyro Ball, Toxic, Stealth Rocks, and Recycle is going to be the set. Gyro Ball does a really good chunk to Glalie. It hits Superior pretty good. It hits Raikou to break the sub if Raikou is max speed. So just a nice reliable stab move that can hit his whole team pretty decently just because most of the Pokemon he has that resist it are pretty fast. So they'll take about 35% from it, which is nice chip because again those uh those offensive Pokemon also usually don't have reliable recovery. He could be running Slack off on he could be running Slack off or something on his Infernape, but I don't think he would. Next up is going to be Toxic. Toxic is there because everything that Gyro Ball doesn't hit can get Toxic. So if we can predict a switch into the Infernape or the Raikou, being able to poison that thing and wear it down slowly is going to be really nice. Uh, yeah, it also wears down Snorlax if he's not running, like if he's running a normal type and ground type move as his coverage, like High Horsepower or Earthquake. Toxic, basically Bronzong is a really, really good answer to that Snorlax, and Toxic can wear it down until it eventually goes down. Next up is Stealth Rocks. Stealth Rocks is just a really good move in general. You guys probably know that by now. Being able to wear down his team every time they switch in, it's going to be chopping 25% off that Mega Glalie, which is going to be really helpful, and just meaning he can't switch as safely is going to be really nice, especially on a hyper offensive team like his, since he doesn't have a lot of bulk. If he EVs his Infernape to live a hit from like Emboar, it might not be able to live it after Stealth Rock. So, and then of course Recycle, paired with the Aguav Berry, gives himself a semi form of recovery. It also allows him to heal off hits from Pokemon like sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Glalie and Serperior and Raikou, so he can stay around long enough to answer those Pokemon, right? So here's going to be the spread. Nothing too fancy. 244 HP, 188 defense, and 76 special defense. So more of a mixed set this time if we get into the calcs. As you can see, if my opponent gets +2 on Superior, Hidden Power Fire still won't be a 2-hit KO, so we can put that on a timer with a Toxic and then continuously recycle our berry back until it inevitably goes down. And with the defense investment, as you can see, even an Adamant Mega Glalie using Double Edge won't be able to 3-hit KO me, which will allow us to wear it down with Recoil and Gyro Ball and um, recover off the damage with our berry. So, yep, that's going to be the Bronzong set. Pretty straightforward, nice and tanky. Definitely good typing as far as checking his Pokemon goes. He doesn't have like a lot of these Pokemon he has don't really have good coverage moves to hit it. So that's why Bronzong should be able to put in a lot of work this week. And that's going to be our 3 bulky defensive pivots. Next up, we're going to go into our breakers. First up is going to be Choice Banded Emboar. So this guy hits like a bus. Choice Band, Reckless, with Flare Blitz, Superpower, Wild Charge, and Sucker Punch. Flare Blitz is powered by Reckless. Stab, it just, you don't even want to switch into it if you resist. Blastoise is even going to be taking a good chunk from that. Superpower hits everything, technically, that Flare Blitz doesn't. Stuff like Blastoise and Infernape. Stuff that resists Flare Blitz will be taking super effective, not super effective, but be taking a lot from Superpower. Wild Charge is there pretty much solely for that Blastoise, because if I can predict the switch into Blastoise or get Emboar in safely on the Blastoise somehow, Wild Charge will basically pick up the knockout unless it's max Fizz Def. And then Sucker Punch is there just for a form of priority in case I need it. Technically, Flare Blitz and Superpower is really all he needs. That hits everything on his team, at least neutrally. But Wild Charge and Sucker Punch, since we're given 4 moves, so I'm going to make use of them. Wild Charge hits the Blastoise, and then Sucker Punch can pick off like a weakened Glalie or something like that. So here's where we get into a little bit fancy of the spreads. We're going to have 140 HP, 132 attack, 52 defense, 60 special defense, and 124 speed. So the speed is there to speed creep Blastoise. So uninvested Blastoise at level 50 hits 98 speed. And so if I wanted to outspeed the Blastoise, I would hit 99 speed. Now let's say my opponent thinks, oh, he might speed creep his Emboar for my Blastoise, so let me run 12 speed EVs, which would allow him to hit 100 speed to outspeed an Emboar that's built to outspeed uninvested Blastoise. That's what this outspeeds. It just speed creeps the Blastoise, so hopefully we'll be able to outspeed that and hit it with a wild charge. The defense investment we have allows us to tank a close combat from Infernape after Stealth Rocks. As you can see, it doesn't. A Life Orb, Infernape's close combat after Stealth Rocks will never knock out my Emboar. And the special defense means that even if somehow the Serperior gets up to +4, and he gets the Stealth Rock chip, Leaf Storm still won't be knocking me out. So yeah, Emboar, even though it's not built to, it doesn't have the stats that makes you think, oh, this is a defensive Pokemon. He'll be able to eat up a hit if he needs to, and then the rest is just put into attack to give him as much damage output as possible. Sorry. Next up is going to be Nidoking. Nidoking, we're going to be running a Choice Scarf this week instead of a Life Orb. This will allow us to clean up late game if we need to. He definitely has the ability to, with the sheer force boosting his entire moveset this week. Sludge Wave, Earth Power, Flamethrower, and Thunderbolt. Sludge Wave is not only his most powerful move, it also hits Serperior for the clean knockout. Does a good chunk to Glalie and Infernape if they try to switch in. We've got Earth Power, which cleanly knocks out the Infernape. It also does a good chunk to Muck and to Cofagrigus. Flamethrower there's pretty much specifically for the Glalie, doing enough to knock out after Stealth Rocks, and if my opponent tries to make a prediction and go into Serperior, it can also hit that super effectively as well. And then Thunderbolt hits the Blastoise and the Archeops super effectively, so those things won't be able to basically check me either. Another fancy sprat for a breaker Pokemon this week, 12 HP, 4 defense, 212 special attack, 108 special defense, and 172 speed. So 172 speed lets us hit 127, and with a Choice Scarf that allows us to hit 190 speed, which allows us to outspeed Jolly Dugtrio. And that is the fastest Pokemon on his team, so the only other way he would be able to outspeed my Nidoking is with a Choice Scarf user, and there's no point in trying to outspeed an opposing Choice Scarf user because everything on his team has a higher base speed than the Nidoking, bar like the Blastoise, and everything else is just like super slow and not something I can see him putting a Choice Scarf on. And I honestly don't think I'll put a Choice Scarf on the Blastoise either. So yeah, this allows us to outspeed all of his non-Choice Scarf Pokemon. With the special defense EVs, as you're about to see, Cofagrigus with max special attack using Ghost DMZ. Never-ending Nightmare will never knock me out in one shot, so we can then proceed to hit KO with Earth Power if we get into that situation. And with a little bit of defense, we have a Flare Blitz from Infernape into an Iron Fist boosted Mach Punch will never knock out, so allowing us to play a little riskier around that if you yeah. And then the rest is just put into special attack in order to deal as much damage as possible. So yep, 2 choice users this week, and our final Pokemon is going to be the Mega Gyarados, which has been coming back every single week just because it's such a good Pokemon. We're going to be running Crunch, Earthquake, Dragon Dance, and Substitute this week. Crunch and Earthquake pretty much hits his entire team. Everything that resists Crunch doesn't want to take an Earthquake. Stuff like Infernape just gets knocked out by Earthquake. So no real need for Waterfall there. Dragon Dance, of course, is because if we manage to get up a Dragon Dance, it can basically win us the game. Since he doesn't really have any like really good answers to Gyarados. I can see him maybe running Dragon Tail on his Dragon Tail on his Blastoise or Haze in order to check it. But if he does have Dragon Tail to check it, that is why we have Substitute. Substitute allows us to basically prevent the Blastoise from doing anything to us. It can't Toxic us, it can't Dragon Tail us out, it can't Scald Burn us, nothing. We can also substitute up on a switch, like if my opponent locks himself into Flare Blitz with a choice to Infernape. He probably won't want to Flare Blitz a Gyarados and let me get up free Dragon Dances, so we basically get a substitute there, which allows us to just play a little safer. Set this week is going to be 180 HP, 52 attack, 12 defense, 60 special defense, 204 speed, and an adamant nature. So same speed tier as the Nidoking. So if we get to +1, we have speed the entirety of his the offensive portion of his team. The HP and defense, as you can see, allows us to live a close combat from Infernape 100% of the time. So if it's a focus action Infernape and it lives an Earthquake, then we live the close combat right back. So that's good. And with the special defense investment, we have a choice specs. Raikou's Thunderbolt will not be able to knock us out. So yeah, Gyarados just proving that it does have, even though it has a lot of attack power, it definitely has the bulk to take hits as well. And then of course the rest is just dumped into attack just to make him as powerful as possible. So yeah, that's going to be the team for this week. 3 solid defensive pivots and 3 extremely powerful offensive breakers. Hopefully this will be able to muscle through my opponent's team. Look forward to the battle. It should be going up the day after this Teambuilder goes up, and I will see you guys then. So